I have been associated with AIPAC, and what I mean by that is loosely associated through friends, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. AIPAC is the largest bipartisan organization, political organization in the country. Both Democrats and Republicans. I've got audio from Senator Cory Booker, who is in Israel. We have a Democratic representative who was also in Israel, and quotes about this, with the exception of some of the people in the squad, which is a whole different ballgame with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They have not denounced Israel, but they certainly have not denounced Hamas and what they have done. But throughout the history of all of this, I got to tell you, whatever your sense of siding with whoever on this, if you're someone that is on the side of the Palestinians and believe that they have rights that were taken from them, or you believe that the nation of Israel should have and always will be the nation of Israel, what you saw happen was murderous. It was nothing short of a murderous attack. And anybody who would blame Israel for that attack, you are way too politically motivated. I have a couple of quotes. Golda Meir, who is one of the great leaders of Israel, is so famous for some of the brilliant things that were said. And here's one of them that I think echoes the sentiment of Israelis that I have talked to. And these are people that have served in the Israeli military, that have served their time, that are from Israel, that live here in the States now. And here's a quote from Golda Meir. When peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons, but it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons. Peace will come when Arabs will love their children more than they hate us. And there's another quote attributed to her. If the Arabs put down their guns, there will be no more fighting. If the Israeli put down theirs, there would be no more Israel. And I don't think what we saw over the weekend, nothing exemplifies that last quote than what we saw over the weekend. Aaron Katursky talks about the heightened security in the U.S.
The FBI is tracking no specific threat, but officials are worried the war in Israel could spring more violence and hate crimes here in the United States. In fact, we've had a look at a new assessment of the situation from the NYPD, and it is blunt. It says the attacks against Israel will likely result in additional reciprocal acts of targeted violence and will be heavily exploited in violent extremist propaganda.
What we have seen over the weekend, I talked earlier about this morning, is when he's speaking specifically of New York City. In New York City, they had pro-Palestinian marches in the streets, and they were celebrating this murderous rampage. If you have not looked, and it is difficult to look at, there were bodies paraded in the streets, one of specifically of a young woman. The elderly were taken hostage. There are hostages that have been kidnapped. By the way, the American government is trying to assess. There have been Americans killed, they believe, and some Americans taken hostage. What does that mean? What will our government do about that? Children were murdered. One of the videos I watched was of people running from a music festival which was bombarded, and they flew into this festival on paragliders, and they were armed. And so these murderous terrorists, Hamas terrorists, flew in and flew low like you can with a paraglider, and then began to mow down the crowd with gunfire. And so these were people that were simply at a music festival. Wherever you stand on military beliefs, do you condone this kind of action? The concern is now that because of, in many places in America, the anti-Israel stance of people, they're concerned about copycat crimes.
Police across the country are paying extra attention to synagogues and mosques, Israeli and Palestinian government and cultural locations, and other sites that could be targets. The fear is the war could inspire copycats or retaliation by lone actors. Organized terror groups or white supremacists could seek to capitalize too.
So Anthony Blinken, it was U.S. Secretary of State, had been commenting about this. And I want you to hear a little bit of what he had to say about building support for Israel.
The entire government has been engaged throughout the region and well beyond, both to build support for Israel and to make sure that every country was using whatever means it has, whatever influence it has, to pull Hamas back.
And the relationship between the nation of Iran and Hamas.
Hamas wouldn't be Hamas without the support that it's gotten over many years from Iran. We haven't yet seen direct evidence that Iran was behind this particular attack or involved, but the support over many years is clear.
Well, this is the defense now. If you remember, we released $6 billion in oil money was sent to the Iranian people. They said they're going to spend it the way they want to spend it. And I'm the first one to admit that there is not necessarily a direct correlation of any of that $6 billion in these attacks. But you just heard Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, say Hamas would not be Hamas without Iran. His words, not mine. That's what he said. But he also said there's no connection in this money.
Not a single dollar from that account has actually been spent to date. And in any event, it's very carefully and closely regulated by the Treasury Department to make sure that it's only used for food, for medicine, for medical equipment.
Okay, so let's just make a let's make a comparison here. We have forfeiture laws in America that if you are part of a criminal enterprise, they can take your property. If they believe you purchased a home or purchased vehicles or purchased anything or bank accounts with ill-gotten money, whether or not any of that money was actually ill-gotten, they'll take your money and it's forfeited to the United States government because of our laws. That if you are someone, now, and I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but we know that the defense is, well, that money was earned legitimately or this was made legitimately. And many of the people lose their property because you can't tell which is good and which is bad. The no connection of this money, this is only going to hospitals and equipment. You're the one that just said that Hamas would not be Hamas without Iran. This is where we as a nation have to understand when we choose sides. And listen, I think diplomacy is the way to go in almost every situation. But we look at of Iran and what they've said about Israel. In their constitution, they are going to destroy the Zionist state and anybody that sympathizes with them. The Iranians would love to destroy us. They've said it. They would love to see us destroyed. We are financing and we are giving up and making concessions to a country. It's the second time I've known about it. We did it again. We did it before during the Obama administration with money from an arms deal that went back to the 1970s, plus interest of over $1 billion. And what we are doing is helping to finance the Ayatollahs to continue the oppression of their own people and to spread terrorism around the world. They spend the money. Hamas takes the risk. Hamas commits the attacks. Hamas now in Gaza, the bombs are falling. But we know that who is pulling the strings. And if we don't, as a nation, if we don't stand up and not only denounce it, but make sure it never happens again and letting the world know that they're on notice, if we don't cut off relations and if we don't cut off funding and if we don't see regime change in Iran, none of this will ever stop. None of this will ever stop. And I just think this is where American diplomacy, we are missing knowledgeable diplomats. I don't care which party you're from, that can be out there on the ground trying to solve this problem. We haven't even talked about the money part of this yet. The money part of this, of what it can do to oil prices. Some are saying oil could go up to $150 per barrel. The Saudis are siding with Hamas. This could be tough. This could be a long journey.